Hey guys, tonight we're heading deep into the dust-kissed world of the medieval African salt traders, where camels plod silently across endless desert sands, their backs creaking under weight of precious salt slabs. Picture the first blush of dawn painting the Sahara in golds and pinks, a world that seemed both ancient and timeless. The air is dry, your throat already parched, and the only sound you hear are the faint scuffle of leather sandals and the soft huff of camels readying themselves for the long journey. But before you slip too far into this serene scene, remember, this isn't a casual stroll. You probably wouldn't last a day under that relentless sun without a guide, a camel, and, let's be honest, a lot of luck. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're watching from somewhere amazing, drop your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of a dusty clearing where traders are assembling their caravan. The sun has only just begun to climb, but already it bathes the dunes in soft light. Men in indigo and russet robes, their faces partially hidden behind turbans to shield against the coming heat, work quickly and efficiently. Camels grunt as they are loaded with slabs of salt, each one hewn from mines deep in the heart of the Sahara, weighing as much as a man's own bird in a dream. Some traders check the leather bindings, making sure nothing will slip as the animals sway into their march. Others offer murmured prayers, quiet words that blend into the desert stillness. You notice how the traders organize themselves, forming clusters that look more like silent choreographed routines and hurried preparation. There's little talk, but much is communicated through glances and gestures, a finger pointed toward a stubborn camel, a nod toward an overstacked load. And though the air feels tense, it's a practiced kind of tension, the kind born from years of repetition. Historians still argue whether this morning ritual was strictly practical or if it held ceremonial meaning, a final gathering of intentions before the journey into silence and sun. A young boy, barely taller than a camel's knee, darts between the legs of men and beasts, his hands clutching a bundle of dates and a water skin. He is likely a runner, someone tasked with carrying urgent messages or gathering supplies before the caravan departs. His bare feet kick up little puffs of dust, and he pauses just long enough to catch his breath, the wide-eyed excitement of the day's adventure flickering across his face. As the first camel steps forward, its padded foot sinking slightly into the sand, a subtle ripple passes through the crowd. The caravan is beginning to form, a long line of humps and heads and swaying tails, each camel bound to its neighbor by invisible threads of experience and trust. A soft hush falls over the gathering, not because anyone calls for it, but because the desert itself seems to demand it. Your ears strain against the silence, catching only the faint jangle of a camel's harness and the almost imperceptible shuffle of sandal. And then, with the sun cresting the dunes behind them, the caravan sets out. The traders lead their camels with steady hands, guiding them onto the ancient paths worn into the earth by generations of salt traders before them. You follow, feeling the pull of the journey already working its quiet magic. The world around you narrows into sand and sky and the soft rhythm of footsteps on dust. It's not a loud departure, but a deliberate one, marked by a silent understanding that the desert isn't a place for casual chatter. It's a place for listening, to the land, to the animals, to the subtle shifts in wind and light that might spell danger or safe passage. The line of camels stretches out behind you, a sinuous thread weaving through the dune. Occasionally, a trader will pause to adjust a strap or pat a camel's neck, but no words are exchanged. The language here is one of movement and intent. A slight pull on a lead rope signals a change in pace. A raised eyebrow warns of a loose load. You begin to appreciate how much can be communicated without a single word spoken aloud. The sun climbs higher, its rays intensifying the golds and ochres of the desert. The air feels heavier, but the caravan continues its measured march. You notice how each camel carries its burden with stoic grace, its long lashes half closed against the brightness. The traders, too, walk with a kind of dignity, their faces set not in grim determination but in quiet acceptance of the journey's demand. A breeze stirs the edge of your tunic, carrying with it the scent of camel sweat and sun-warmed leather. It's a smell you'll come to recognize as part of this world, a blend of effort and endurance. You catch sight of a small pouch dangling from a trader's belt, the leather worn smooth from years of handling. Inside, perhaps, are talismans, tiny reminders of home, of family, of the faith that ties them to both this land and the journey ahead. Historians still argue whether these charms were purely symbolic or believed to hold genuine protective power, but watching the trader's fingers brush the pouch as he walks, you sense the comfort it provides. The line of camels dips into a shallow wadi, the sand here darker, the air cooler. You feel a momentary relief from the sun's intensity, but it's fleeting. The traders quicken their pace slightly, as if eager to clear the wadi before the heat traps them in its basin. Your own footsteps feel heavy in the damp sand, and you find yourself adjusting your pace to match the rhythm of the caravan. It's not a race, but it is a dance, a careful negotiation between distance and endurance, between silence and survival. As you climb out of the wadi, the desert opens up once more, stretching into a vast expanse of undulating dune. The horizon shimmers with heat, and for a moment, you imagine the faint echo of drums beneath the silence, a heartbeat deep in the sand, a memory of past journeys layered into the land itself. The caravan presses on, each step drawing you deeper into the world of medieval salt traders and their Camel-Caravan radio silence. The sun climbs higher, the light sharpening against the sand like a blade against stone. You trail behind the camel train, the landscape around you shifting with each step. Dunes ripple and recede, casting long shadows that seem to stretch into forever. The air wavers with heat, each shimmering mirage offering the false promise of water, of shelter, of reprieve. The silence grows thicker now, wrapping around you like a second skin. You realize the traders aren't just conserving energy, they're conserving breath, saving it for when it will truly be needed. Your mouth feels dry, your throat tight with dust. One of the traders ahead pauses to hand you a small leather water bag, its contents cool and earthy against your tongue. The sip you take is precious, a drop of life rationed carefully. The trader gives you a brief nod, a silent reminder that generosity and necessity are tightly braided here. Historians still argue whether such gestures were a mark of hospitality or sheer practicality, but in this moment, it feels like a quiet bond of survival. The path narrows between two ridges of sandstone, their ochre walls towering like silent sentinels. The camels file through one by one, their steps careful on the uneven ground. You notice the smallest movements, the sway of a camel's tail, the shift of a load as a trader steadies it with practiced hand. There's a rhythm to it, a dance where each participant knows their role. You marvel at the quiet efficiency, the way danger and effort are woven seamlessly into the mundane. Emerging from the past, the desert stretches wide again, a canvas painted with sun and shadow. You hear a faint ringing sound and realize it's coming from the lead camel's bell, a delicate chime that seems both out of place and perfectly fitting in the vast silence. It serves a purpose, signaling position, keeping the caravan linked even when sight is lost to dust or distance. You wonder how many times this sound has echoed across these sands, a note of connection in a land where voices are swallowed whole. A sudden gust of wind stays the sand around you, lifting grains into a swirling dance. The traders pull their turbans tighter, their eyes narrowing against the sting. One of them leans close to his camel's ear, murmuring softly, not in command, but in reassurance. You catch a few words, a blend of Arabic and a dialect you don't recognize, something about patience, about the road still ahead. Historians still argue whether these murmured words were practical instructions or incantation for luck and safety. Either way, they seem to steady both man and beast. The air thickens as midday approaches, the sun a relentless presence overhead. You catch glimpses of small desert plants, tufts of grass, the occasional hardy shrub clinging to life. A trader breaks a sprig of desert thyme, crushing it between his fingers to release its scent, a small act of comfort amid the endless stretch of sand. You breathe it in, the sharp green tang cutting through the dry heat, a momentary oasis for the senses. The camel slow as a path leads into a shallow basin, where the sand is fine and soft, forcing them to step carefully. You notice how the trader's steps adjust too, lightening as they move over the shifting ground. One man points out a set of faint tracks, perhaps left by a gazelle or by another caravan long gone. His voice is low, but you catch the hint of wonder in it, the acknowledgement of unseen lives intersecting briefly with their own. You feel the weight of history in those tracks, the knowledge that this journey is both unique and part of something far larger than any one traveler. As the sun begins its slow descent, the air cools slightly, the light softening into gold and rose. The caravan pauses at a cluster of low acacia trees, their twisted branches offering sparse but welcome shade. Traders remove their loads with practiced care, setting the salt slabs down on the ground as if they were delicate treasures. You watch as they unfurl thin mats, sit cross-legged, and share quiet meals of dates, dried meat, and water. The silence is not broken by loud conversation, but by the soft sounds of chewing, of water trickling from a skin, and the occasional murmur of thanks. The air is filled with the earthy scent of dust and the faint sweetness of the acacia blossom. Nearby, a young camel collapses onto its knees, exhausted from the day's march. A trader crouches beside it, checking its legs, murmuring reassurances. He offers it a handful of crushed millet mixed with water from his own pouch. The camel nuzzles his hand, its eyes half-lidded with weariness. You sense a deep bond between them, a partnership that transcends mere utility. Historians still argue whether this relationship was born of necessity or genuine affection, but the gentle touch of the trader's hand tells its own story. As twilight settles, the traders begin to set up camp. Small fires are kindled in shallow pits, their flames dancing against the deepening blue of the sky. You watch as one trader carefully arranges flat stones to create a makeshift cooking surface, balancing a simple metal pot over the coal. The smell of boiling grain and spices drifts through the air, mingling with the scent of camel sweat and cooling earth. It's a humble meal, but it carries a promise of warmth and sustenance. You sit on the edge of the camp, the stars beginning to emerge overhead. The silence deepens, broken only by the soft breathing of camels and the occasional crackle of the fire. A trader begins to hum, a low, melodic tune that seems to rise from the earth itself. Others join in, their voices weaving together into a tapestry of sound that fills the space without breaking its peace. It's a song of journeying, of endurance, of shared purpose. You close your eyes, letting the music wash over you, feeling the weight of the day lift gently from your shoulders. The night unfolds around you, the chill of the desert settling in your bones, but the warmth of the fire and the quiet solidarity of the traders create a cocoon of safety. The camels shift and murmur in their sleep. The stars wheel silently above, and you feel yourself slipping into a drowsy reverie. The journey continues, but for now, there's only the hush of the desert night and the soft, steady rhythm of breath and heart. The morning light steals softly into the camp, washing everything in pale gold. You wake to the sound of camels shifting, their breath forming faint clouds in the cool air. The traders move quietly, their gestures efficient and unhurried. They fold their blankets, gather their few belongings, and check the bindings of their loads with careful hand. The scent of strong, bitter coffee brewed over the remaining coals teases your senses, mingling with the earthy aroma of dust and camel hide. You accept a small cup from a trader, savoring the warmth and sharp taste that cuts through the morning chill. As the sun climbs higher, the silence of the caravan returns. No one speaks unless necessary. The traders' faces are set in quiet determination, their eyes scanning the horizon for landmarks, low ridges of stone, faint smudges of green where desert plants cling stubbornly to life. One man adjusts his headscarf, its indigo folds bright against the pale sand. Historians still argue whether these indigo dyes were chosen for practicality or aesthetics, but their vivid hue seems to pulse with life in the midst of the desert's monotone. You fall into step beside a camel, its long, deliberate stride setting the pace. Its soft, rhythmic grunts blend with the creak of leather and the faint clink of bells. You realize how perfectly these sounds fit the landscape, how the noise of human voices would seem intrusive here. The trader's silence isn't just practical. It's a kind of respect for the journey, an acknowledgement that the desert listens. You wonder how many secrets the sands have heard, how many whispered stories are being swallowed by the dune. The path leads through a shallow wadi, the ground firm beneath your feet. You notice the subtle signs of recent rain, a darker stain in the sand, a faint scent of damp earth, the fragile green shoots of desert grass pushing upward in defiance. A trader pauses, crouching to examine a cluster of tiny flowers blooming bravely amid the harshness. He plucks one, tucks it into his pouch as a charm. You feel a pang of recognition in the gesture, a reminder that even here, beauty is acknowledged, cherished, and perhaps carried home as a talisman. A sharp cry overhead draws your attention to a pair of birds circling against the sun. They wheel and dive, their wings flashing silver in the light. The traders glance upward but keep moving, their focus on the path ahead. You sense an unspoken understanding. Birds are messengers, but their stories are their own. Historians still argue whether desert travelers saw these birds as omens or simply fellow wayfarers. But in this moment, their presence feels like a nod to the journey's continuity. As the sun approaches its zenith, the heat presses down like a weight, flattening sound and thought alike. The traders adjust their pace, their movements economical. One man taps a camel's flank with the end of his staff, prompting it forward with a soft grunt. Another checks the load of salt slabs, ensuring the bindings haven't loosened. The camels plod onward, their shadows lengthening on the sand. You wipe sweat from your brow, grateful for the thin cloth shading your face. The caravan halts briefly at a solitary acacia, its branches twisted against the sky. Traders gather beneath its sparse shade, sipping water and sharing a few dates. A boy barely in his teens hands out pieces of flatbread, his expression serious, his gestures practiced. You catch a glimpse of quiet pride in his eyes, the knowledge that he is part of something larger, that his hands, too, help carry this journey forward. You accept a piece of bread, its dryness softened by the sweet tang of a dried fig tucked inside. As the group rests, a trader kneels to trace lines in the sand, sketching a map of the route ahead. His fingers move deftly, marking landmarks with small stones, an outcrop here, a watering hole there. Others gather around, nodding and murmuring. You notice how the map shifts subtly, the lines redrawn to account for changes in the landscape. Historians still argue whether these desert maps were precise guides or flexible suggestions, but watching the traders' careful adjustments, you suspect they were both. The break ends, the traders rising with quiet resolve. Loads are checked, camels nudged into motion, and the caravan flows forward like a river finding its course. You sense a shift in energy, not hurried, but purposeful, a subtle acceleration as the group senses the importance of this stretch of the journey. The silence returns, deeper now, broken only by the soft clink of bells and the scuff of sandals against sand. A sudden breeze stays the air, carrying with it a faint scent of salt. You realize you're nearing the edge of a dry salt flat, its pale surface gleaming ahead like a mirror to the sky. The camels hesitate slightly, their steps adjusting to the harder ground. Traders check the loads, ensuring the slabs of salt are secure. You watch as one man kneels to brush a layer of dust from a slab, his touch gentle, almost reverent. You sense a significance. This salt is not just cargo, it's currency, lifeblood, and connection. As the sun begins its slow descent, the caravan shadows stretch long and thin across the flat. The air cools, the harsh light softens into amber and rose. Traders loosen their scarves, their faces relaxing fractionally. You hear the soft murmur of a song, a quiet, rhythmic chant that drifts like smoke across the salt. The melody is simple, repetitive, a lullaby for the road. You find yourself humming along, the tune settling into your bones like an old memory. The camp for the night is set on the edge of the salt flat, the ground firm and level. Fires are kindled, their light flickering against the encroaching dark. Traders arrange mats and blankets, share bowls of stewed grains and lentils. A young man offers you a cup of spiced tea, its aroma rich with cinnamon and cloves. You sip slowly, the warmth spreading through your limbs, easing the day's aches. As the night deepens, the stars emerge, bright, sharp, infinite. The traders' silhouettes blur into the dark, their voices low and steady. You feel the pulse of the caravan, the quiet strength that has carried them across endless miles of sand. The salt glimmers under moonlight, a reminder of the journey's purpose. You close your eyes, the hush of the desert settling around you like a blanket. The road ahead is long, but for now, there's only the steady beat of heart and breath, the silent promise of dawn. The first rays of dawn brush the desert in soft pink and gold, pulling the caravan gently from sleep. You stir from your mat, the scent of spiced tea already curling through the air. Traders move quietly, rolling blankets, securing camel loads, their hands practiced and sure. A man in a deep indigo robe hums a tune as he packs his satchel, his voice low and warm. It's a melody you heard before, a thread of continuity weaving through the silent dawn. Historians still argue whether such songs were mere travel companions or coded messages, but either way, they settle the nerves, coaxing the caravan back into motion. The camels rise slowly, their long legs unfolding like intricate machinery. You help tie down a load of salt slabs, the ropes rough against your palm. The air is cool, the desert's breath holding a faint promise of heat to come. The traders exchange nods and brief murmurs before stepping into the rising light. No one lingered. Even the youngest among them moved with quiet purpose, knowing that each day's journey is a step closer to the next water source, the next trading post, the next fleeting moment of respite. As the caravan sets off, you feel the silence deepen. The footsteps of men and camels blend with the rhythmic creak of leather and the faint clink of metal buckle. Your own steps fall into line, guided by the pull of the desert's quiet rhythm. The sun climbs steadily, painting the dunes with light and shadow, tracing long lines of gold and amber. A trader ahead adjusts his load, his silhouette sharp against the sky. His movements a study in balance and grace. You pass through a narrow defile between low stone outcrops, the path winding like a whispered secret. The air shifts, carrying with it a faint, sharp scent of mineral-rich sand. You catch a glimpse of ancient petroglyphs etched into the stone, spirals, animals, human figures dancing in an eternal line. A trader pauses, running his fingers over the worn carvings, his lips moving in silent recognition. You wonder about the hands that made these marks, the stories they told, the echoes of a world that existed long before your own footsteps touched this path. The sun's heat intensifies, the desert tightening its grip. You feel it in the weight of your pack, the dryness of your mouth, the beads of sweat tracing paths down your back. The traders adjust their scarves, their faces shaded but determined. A camel lets out a low, rumbling complaint, but its handler murmurs softly, a soothing word that settles the animal. Historians still argue whether these handlers use particular calls or gestures passed down through generations, but the connection between man and beast is undeniable here. By midday, the caravan reaches a dry wadi, its edges marked by the bleached bones of old trees. The traders halt, securing the camels in a rough semicircle. They share water from goatskin bags, passing cups from hand to hand. A woman in a russet cloak hands you a piece of flatbread wrapped around dried date. The sweetness on your tongue is a small blessing, a reminder that even in the harshest landscapes, small comforts persist. A trader tells a quiet joke in a dialect you barely catch, and the ripple of laughter feels like a cool breeze against the heat. The pause is brief. Loads are checked, camels prodded back into formation, and the caravan moves on. You sense the growing urgency in their steps, the unspoken knowledge that this stretch of desert is less forgiving than others. A trader glances upward, his gaze scanning for signs of a dust storm, his hand shading his eyes. You follow his gaze and feel a prickling unease. The sky is clear, but the air hums with tension. The desert silence can shift swiftly, and its moods are often unpredictable. A sudden gust stays the sand, sending fine grains skittering across the path. Traders adjust their scarves, tightening them against the shifting air. You feel the sting of grit against your skin, the taste of dust on your lips. The caravan slows, steps measured, eyes scanning for shelter. You spot a low rock ledge and instinctively steer toward it, mirroring the trader's practiced movement. Beneath the ledge, the air is cooler, the shadows deep, offering a brief sanctuary from the element. The storm, when it comes, is swift but not brutal. The wind rises, carrying sand in swirling eddies that dance along the ground. Traders hunker down, securing their loads, camels pressing close together, their eyes half closed against the sting. You cover your face with a cloth, breathing shallowly. The storm passes as quickly as it came, leaving behind a landscape subtly reshaped, its contours smooth, its paths slightly altered. The traders rise, brushing sand from their clothes, their movements calm and practiced. You hear one mutter, not the wise, and another responds with a low, knowing chuckle. As the sun dips lower, the light softens, painting the desert in shades of rose and violet. The caravan slows, the day's pace easing into a quieter rhythm. A boy rides on a camel's back, his small hands gripping the saddle's worn leather, his laughter bright against the hush. You feel a lightness in the air, a sense of resilience and quiet pride. The traders exchange glances, their eyes reflecting the fading light, their faces marked by dust and determination. The camp is made in a shallow basin, its edges marked by low dune. Fires are kindled, their light flickering against the encroaching dark. The traders share bowls of lentil stew, the scent rich and comforting. A man in a saffron robe tells a story of a caravan lost and found again, his voice rising and falling like the desert wind. You listen, the words weaving into the fabric of the night, their cadence both ancient and familiar. As the stars emerge, sharp against the velvet sky, the traders' voices soften, their laughter fading into murmurs. You sit quietly, the weight of the day settling into your bones, the hush of the desert wrapping around you like a cloak. The camels shift in the shadows, their silhouettes patient and still. The salt slabs, stacked neatly, glint faintly in the firelight, a reminder of the journey's purpose, of the connection between this harsh world and the wider one beyond. You close your eyes, feeling the desert's quiet embrace, the steady pulse of the caravan, the stories carried on the wind. Sleep tugs gently at your senses, but you remain, just for a moment, listening to the hush of sand and star and breath. The morning sun climbs higher as the caravan resumes its journey, the desert's golden light softening the sharp edges of the dune. You rub sleep from your eyes, feeling the stiffness of a night ease as your muscles warm with movement. The traders move with quiet efficiency, their steps measured, their voices low. Camels plod steadily, their shadows stretching long against the sand, their breaths misting faintly in the cool air. A woman in a deep indigo robe hums a melody, its notes threading through the hush like a thread of silk. It's the same tune from the day before, familiar and grounding, a song that feels older than memory. The silence of the caravan isn't a void, it's a rhythm. Each footfall, each creak of saddle leather, each breath forms a pattern, a language beyond word. Historians still argue whether this quiet was a strategic necessity to avoid drawing attention from raiders or rival caravans, or simply the natural cadence of a people attuned to the desert's demand. Whatever the reason, the silence hums with purpose, with respect for the journey, for the fragile equilibrium between traveler and land. You pass a rocky outcrop where a lone sentinel stands watch, a wiry man wrapped in a russet scarf, his eyes scanning the horizon. His gaze sweeps the dunes, alert for any sign of movement. You sense his awareness, his connection to the desert's subtle cues, the way sand shifts under a hidden footfall, the faint glint of sunlight off distant metal. He nods briefly as you pass, his expression calm but watchful. You wonder how many times he stood like this, a quiet guardian of the caravan's safety. By midday, the sun's heat presses down, and the traders seek the scant shade offered by a cluster of low acacia trees. They share water from goatskin bags, passing the precious liquid from hand to hand with quiet gratitude. A man in a teal tunic slices thin strips of dried meat, offering them around. The salt and the meat stings your dry lips, but the flavor is welcome, a reminder of sustenance hard-won. A trader beside you murmurs a joke about the desert's version of fine dining, drawing a ripple of laughter. The pause is brief. Loads are checked, camels coaxed back to their feet, and the caravan moves on. The path ahead winds between low dunes, their shapes sculpted by wind and time. You notice the delicate tracery of tracks, faint imprints of lizards, the deeper marks of passing antelope. The desert isn't empty. It's a canvas painted with stories, with signs of life hidden in plain sight. A trader points to a distant ridge where a lone acacia stands silhouetted against the sky. "That's our marker," he says quietly, his voice carrying the weight of knowledge passed through generations. You follow his gaze, the trees shaped distinct against the horizon. It's a landmark, a signal that the next water source is near, that the day's march will end in the cool shade of a shallow wadi. You feel a subtle lift in the caravan's pace, a quiet anticipation threading through the silence. As the sun begins its slow descent, the caravan crests a low rise, revealing a shallow basin where water glistens faintly. The traders exhale softly, their movements relaxing as they guide the camels toward the pool. The animals kneel, their long necks dipping to drink, their sides heaving with the day's exertion. You feel the coolness of the water against your skin as you cup it in your hands, the sensation both refreshing and humbling. Nearby, a child splashes at the water's edge, their laughter bright against the hush. A woman in a saffron skirt washes her hands, the gesture deliberate and graceful. The traders gather in small groups, sharing stories and quiet conversation. You hear snippets of old legends, of jinn who guard the desert's secrets, of lost caravans swallowed by shifting sands, of clever traders who outwitted rivals with cunning and charm. The stories weave through the gathering like threads of gold, binding the caravan together with shared history and humor. As twilight deepens, fires are lit, their glow casting long shadows on the sand. The scent of spiced lentil stew fills the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of desert grasses. A trader tends to a camel sore foot, murmuring reassurances as he applies a poultice of herbs. You watch, noting the care in his movements, the deep knowledge of his craft. Historians still argue whether such treatments were born of empirical study or ancient superstition, but here it's clear that skill and compassion guide every action. A woman seated by the fire plucks a stringed instrument, its notes rising softly against the gathering dark. The melody is simple, its rhythm echoing the steady pulse of the caravan. A man joins her, his voice weaving a song that speaks of journeys long and winding, of homecomings sweetened by hardship. The traders listen, some swaying gently, others tapping their fingers against worn leather satchel. You feel the music settle into your bones, its cadence matching the beat of your heart. A heron glides overhead, its wings catching the firelight as it disappears into the shadows. The traders watch in silence, their expressions a blend of reverence and quiet acceptance. You sense a shared understanding, that the heron, like the caravan, moves with purpose and grace, navigating a world where silence is both shield and sanctuary. As night deepens, the traders begin to drift towards sleep, their voices softening into murmurs, their movements slowing. You lie back on the sand, the sky above unfurling in a tapestry of stars. The silence envelops you, not as emptiness but as a presence, a companion for the night's journey. You feel the weight of the day's miles in your limbs, the warmth of the fire at your back, the steady rhythm of the desert in your breath. You close your eyes, letting the stories, the music, the hush of sand and starlight weave around you. Sleep comes gently, cradling you in the desert's quiet embrace. You wake to the cool pre-dawn, the sky a canvas of shifting pinks and dusky purple. The caravan stays around you, the faint rustle of fabric, the gentle bray of camels, the muted clink of gear being packed. You stretch, feeling the ache in your shoulders from yesterday's long march, and take a deep breath of air tinged with dew and wood smoke. There's a hush in this hour, a space between dreams and waking where the desert whispers softly and the world waits. A trader hands you a small cup of sweetened tea, its warmth seeping into your chilled hand. You sip, savoring the faint bite of ginger, the mellow honeyed undertone. Around the fire, a quiet conversation flows like water, low murmurs of plans for the day, gentle jokes about the youngest camel's stubbornness, a reminder about a hidden water source near the next waymark. It's a symphony of familiarity and routine, the caravan's own version of morning radio. As the camels are loaded, you watch a young boy deftly tie a complicated knot on a heavy bundle of salt bricks, his fingers quick and sure. Historians still argue whether these knots were passed down as trade secrets or simply the result of practical necessity, but the fluid skill suggests something ingrained, an inheritance of technique as old as the desert itself. You catch the boy's fleeting grin as he tugs a final loop tight, and you nod, impressed. You step back to let the animals pass, marveling at their patient strength. Their hooves press into the sand, leaving tracks that speak of generations treading this path. One particularly large camel turns its head to regard you, its dark eyes calm and knowing, before it continues its measured pace. You can't help but think that these creatures are the unsung heroes of this trade, silent, steady, and indispensable. The caravan sets out, the sun climbing slowly, painting the dunes in gold and rose. You walk alongside a trader in a russet robe, his face weathered and lined from years beneath the desert sun. He shares a story in a voice softened by time, a tale of a legendary salt trader who once crossed the entire Sahara in record time, guided by the stars and an uncanny sense of direction. They say his camels never stumbled, not once. The man chuckles, his eyes crinkling with mirth. Of course, historians still argue whether he was real or just a story to impress the apprentice. You follow the line of camels as it threads through a narrow pass, the cliffs rising like silent sentinels on either side. Here, the silence deepens, the world narrowing to sand and stone, shadow and light. You feel a sense of reverence, as though entering a sacred space where words aren't intrusion. The traders move with quiet respect, their voices hushed, their steps measured. You can almost hear the heartbeat of the land, steady and enduring. At midday, the caravan emerges into a wide basin where the sun beats down with unrelenting heat. The traders set up temporary shelters, simple canopies of woven reeds and cloth, creating patches of blessed shade. You crouch beneath one, grateful for the respite, and accept a handful of dates from a nearby trader. Their sweetness bursts on your tongue, a counterpoint to the parched air. A faint breeze stays the sand, and for a moment, the world feels still, poised on the edge of something timeless. A herdsman tends to the camels, checking their hooves, murmuring soft reassurances. You watch as he applies a poultice of crushed herbs to a minor scrape, the mixture smelling sharply of desert sage. Nearby, a trader shares a whispered joke about a rival's camel that supposedly refuses to drink from any pool not blessed by a holy man. The tale is met with knowing smirks and quiet laughter, a gentle release from the weight of the journey. The caravan resumes its march, the shadows lengthening as the afternoon wears on. You notice subtle changes in the landscape, patches of hardy desert grass, faint tracks left by jackals or antelope, a sudden burst of vibrant flowers blooming in a shallow dip. Each sign is a testament to life's resilience, a quiet echo of determination that mirrors the trader's own. As the sun dips lower, a hush falls over the caravan. The traders gather at a familiar campsite near a cluster of date palms, their trunks gnarled and ancient. Fires are lit, the flame flickering like small beacons against the gathering dark. The scent of roasting lentils and spice bread fills the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of camel sweat and dust. You find a spot near the fire, feeling its warmth chase away the evening chill. A storyteller begins to speak, his voice low and rhythmic, weaving a tale of a desert spirit who guards lost caravans. Her laughter set an echo in the dunes on moonless nights. The story draws soft murmurs of agreement, the listeners nodding as though they've heard her laughter on the wind themselves. Historians still argue whether such stories were simply cautionary or if they carried kernels of truth, but in this moment, you sense the weight of belief settling gently over the gathering. A trader beside you offers a piece of flatbread, its edges crisp from the fire. You accept it with a smile, savoring the simple meal. The stars emerge one by one, their light softening the shadows, weaving a tapestry overhead. You lean back, feeling the sand shift beneath you, and close your eyes. The night hums with the quiet life of the caravan, the low murmurs of conversation, the crackle of firewood, the steady breathing of camels at rest. As sleep pulls at the edges of your mind, you feel a profound sense of connection to the traders, to the land, to the silent music of the journey. The stories of the desert weave through your thoughts, the laughter and whispers of the day settling like a gentle blanket. You drift off, the world folding into a quiet lullaby of starlight and sand. The night passes in a slow, cool drift, the desert's breath weaving through the sleeping caravan like a gentle caress. You wake just before dawn, the air crisp and silent, the sky a prelude of deep indigo and faint silver. Around you, traders stir in their blankets, their movements quiet as they prepare for another day. You stretch, feeling the familiar ache in your limbs, and take a slow breath of air scented faintly with last night smoke and the musky warmth of camels nearby. A trader offers you a simple breakfast, flatbread warmed over the coals, a few dates, and a mouthful of cool water from a skin. It's not much, but it tastes of necessity and camaraderie, a shared acknowledgement of the journey ahead. You nod your thanks and chew thoughtfully, watching as the first rays of sunlight gild the tips of the dunes and the distant horizon shivers into gold. The world feels paused, caught in the hush of transition, the moment between rest and action. As the caravan stays to life, the camels rise with slow, practiced grace, their legs unfolding like intricate mechanism. You marvel again at their endurance, the quiet stoicism with which they carry their loads across this vast emptiness. Historians still argue whether these beasts were ever truly domesticated or if they simply chose to tolerate human demands out of mutual necessity. But either way, their partnership with the salt traders feels both ancient and profound. You fall into step beside a trader in a saffron tunic, his face lined with sun and wind. He shares a story in his slow, measured voice, a tale of a trader who once sang to the camels each night, claiming it kept them calm and steady on the journey. Some say it's just an old superstition, he adds with a wry smile. But my grandfather swore it worked. The traders around you chuckle softly, their laughter blending with the creak of saddles and the soft thud of hooves on sand. The morning air grows warmer as the sun rises, and you find yourself lulled by the rhythmic pace of the caravan. The landscape stretches endlessly, rippling dunes, scattered rocks, the occasional hardy shrub clutching at the earth. You spot a lizard darting across the path, its scales catching the light like shards of glass. A heron lifts from a nearby pool, its wings casting a fleeting shadow over the sand before it vanishes into the sky. These small moments punctuate the monotony, reminding you that life, however fleeting, persists even here. At midday, the caravan halts in the shadow of a low ridge, the traders seeking refuge from a merciless sun. They set up makeshift shelters, propping cloth against packs and leaning into the scant shade. You settle with them, grateful for the brief respite, and accept a handful of roasted nuts and dried fruit. Nearby, a herdsman tends to a limping camel, murmuring softly as he examines its foot. He applies a poultice made from crushed desert herbs, the mixture smelling sharply of sage and mint. Old trick, he says with a passed down from my grandmother's grandmother, still works. You notice a group of traders gathered around a rough map scratched into the sand, their fingers tracing paths and landmarks. They speak of ancient routes, hidden wells, and rival caravans that once tried and failed to outpace them. One trader jabbed a finger at a faint symbol, declaring it the mark of an old salt mine long abandoned. Historians still argue whether that mine was real, he says with a shrug, or just a story told to keep the young ones busy. The afternoon passes in a haze of heat and soft conversation, the air shimmering with a mirage of distant water. You catch snatches of gossip, tales of a trader who claimed to have seen a mirage of an entire city made of salt, of a caravan dog that once outsmarted bandit, of a hidden valley where the sand sings at night. You laugh softly, letting the stories wash over you like the desert wind. As the sun dips lower, the caravan moves again, the long line of camels and traders weaving through the landscape like a living thread. You follow a narrow path bordered by tufts of grass and patches of brittle stone, the shadows growing longer with each step. The air cools, carrying the faint scent of rain on the wind. A trader near you hums a soft tune, the melody simple and soothing, a counterpoint to the day's silence. You pause at a rise overlooking a shallow basin where a small pool of water gleams in the last light of day. Camels drink greedily, their reflections rippling across the surface. A herder stands nearby, his posture relaxed but watchful, a staff resting lightly in his hand. You catch his eye, and he nods, his expression calm and knowing. "The water here is deep," he says softly. "Good for tonight, but tomorrow we'll move on." As night falls, the caravan circles around small fires, the flames flickering against the deepening dark. Traders prepare simple meals, stewed lentils, roasted grain, a hint of preserved meat. The scent of spices and smoke fills the air, mingling with the desert's cooling breath. You sit with them, sharing food and stories, the laughter rising in soft waves like the tide. The stars emerge one by one, their light weaving a delicate pattern overhead. A storyteller speaks, his voice weaving a tale of a desert fox that outwitted a band of salt raiders, its cleverness immortalized in the stars above. The traders listen with quiet smiles, their faces lit by the fire's glow, their eyes reflecting both amusement and reverence. Historians still argue whether such stories were born from truth or simply the need for comfort on long, silent nights. But in this moment, they feel as real as the sand beneath your feet. You lean back, feeling the warmth of the fire seep into your bones, the weight of the day settling into your shoulders. The night hums with the quiet life of the caravan, the low murmur of conversation, the steady breath of camels at rest, the soft rustle of fabric in the breeze. You close your eyes, letting the sounds and scents of the desert lull you toward sleep. The stars above seem to draw closer, their light a gentle blanket over the world. And as you drift into slumber, the caravan continues its steady journey through the vast, silent expanse. The next morning dawns with a gentle brightness, the sky brushed with delicate streaks of pink and gold. You awaken to the soft rustle of traders stirring in their blankets, the quiet clink of harnesses, and the low, steady hum of camel preparing for the day. The desert air feels cooler, fresh with the promise of movement, and you stretch, feeling the ache in your muscles like a familiar companion. A trader in a deep indigo robe offers you a cup of spiced tea, the steam curling up into the crisp air. You sip gratefully, savoring the warmth that spreads through your chest, the mix of cardamom and cinnamon dancing on your tongue. Around you, others move with a practiced efficiency, checking packs, tightening straps, adjusting loads. It's a ballet of preparation, silent yet precise, a ritual that has been repeated for centuries across these sands. You notice one trader carefully wrapping a bundle of salt slabs in woven reed mats, his fingers nimble and sure. The salt glitters faintly in the morning light, its pale surface streaked with veins of rose and ochre. Historians still argue whether this particular type of salt was prized more for its flavor or its supposed healing properties. But watching the trader's reverent touch, you suspect it was both. The salt is more than a commodity here. It's a lifeline, a silent currency of survival. As the caravan sets off, the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows that stretch and shrink with the undulating dune. You walk alongside a trader in a russet cloak, her voice soft as she shares a story about her grandmother who once crossed the same desert alone, guided only by the stars and the whispers of the wind. She said the camels knew the way. The trader murmurs, her gaze distant, and if you listen closely, the desert would speak to you too. You nod, feeling the weight of those words settle into your thought. The journey unfolds in a rhythm of footsteps, the measured sway of camel backs, and the steady whisper of sand against sand. The air grows warmer, shimmering with a mirage of distant water, and the caravan's pace slows slightly, conserving energy for the long day ahead. You hear the occasional creak of leather, the soft clatter of a cooking pot, the low murmur of voices sharing quiet jokes or snippets of news. A lizard scurries across the path, its tiny claws leaving delicate tracks in the sand before it vanishes into the shadows of a rock. At midday, the caravan halts near a natural rock outcropping that offers a sliver of shade. Traders unpack simple meals, flatbread, dates, a handful of roasted nuts, and share them with quiet nods of gratitude. You join them, feeling the coolness of the stone beneath your hands, listening to the soft drone of insects and the distant call of a bird you can't quite see. A herder tends to a young camel nearby, his voice low and soothing as he checks the animal's legs and adjusts its pack. "You have to treat them like family," he says with a grin. "Otherwise, they'll never forgive you." You watch as a group of traders gather around a small, hand-drawn map scratched into sand. They debate the best route to the next well, voices rising and falling like the desert wind. One points toward a faint trail marked by a cluster of stones, claiming it's a shortcut known only to the oldest traders. Another shakes his head, insisting that the main path is safer, especially with the threat of bandits rumored to be lurking beyond the dune. Historians still argue whether such routes were real or part of the traders' lore, but in the heat of debate, it's clear the stories hold as much weight as a fact. The afternoon stretches long and shimmering, the heat pressing down with a heavy hand. You fall into a steady rhythm, your feet tracing the path carved by generations before you. The silence hums with subtle life, the distant drone of insects, the occasional snort of a camel, the faint rustle of cloth against skin. A trader nearby hums a tune under his breath, the melody simple and soothing, a lullaby for the road. You find yourself humming along, the notes weaving through the silence like a thread. As the sun begins its slow descent, the caravan crests a rise and you catch your breath at the sight below, a wide, shallow basin scattered with tufts of green and glistening with faint traces of water. The camels quicken their pace, their nostrils flaring as they catch the scent of moisture. Traders murmur in anticipation, adjusting their loads, preparing for the brief respite. You follow them down into the basin, feeling the coolness seep into your skin as you near the water's edge. The camels drink greedily, their reflections rippling across the surface, while traders refill water skins and wash dust from their hands and faces. You kneel beside a small pool, cupping your hands to drink, the water tasting faintly of minerals and ancient stone. A herder approaches with a smile, offering you a handful of dates from a worn leather pouch. "Good for the road ahead," he says, his voice warm and steady. You thank him, feeling the sweetness of the fruit melt on your tongue. As evening falls, the caravan gathers around small fires, the flames flickering against the darkening sky. Traders share stories of past journeys, of storms weathered and paths rediscovered, their voices rising and falling like the dunes themselves. A storyteller begins a tale of a lost city of salt buried beneath the desert sand, its towers gleaming white under the moonlight. You listen, caught between skepticism and wonder, as the story wins its way through the night. The stars emerge, one by one, their light weaving a delicate net across the sky. The desert breathes with a quiet rhythm, the hush of sand shifting underfoot, the soft murmur of camels settling for the night. You stretch out on your blanket, feeling the weight of the day slip from your shoulders, your eyes tracing the constellations overhead. The air cools, scented with a faint tang of smoke and the sweetness of dried herb. You breathe deeply, letting the quiet of the desert settle into your bone, and as sleep pulls you under, the caravan continues its journey beneath the endless, watchful stars. You wake to a subtle shift in the air, the first pale hints of dawn stretching across the sky like a tentative artist brushing color onto a blank canvas. The desert is quiet, save for the soft rustle of sand stirred by a light breeze and the low, rhythmic grumbles of camels stretching their long limbs. You sit up slowly, feeling the coolness of the morning seep through your blanket, and catch sight of a trader already kindling a small fire with deft movements, the flames licking upward like eager tongues. The day begins not with a shout, but with a gentle rhythm of preparation. You help pack the camel saddles, feeling the weight of the salt slabs pressing against your hands, their edges cool and rough. The scent of morning tea wafts through the air, the familiar mix of spices mingling with the sharper tang of desert herb. A trader in a saffron robe hands you a steaming cup, her smile quiet and knowing. "The road waits for no one," she murmurs, her voice low and steady. You set out with the caravan, the camel's footfalls padding softly against the sand, the rising sun casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the dunes. The air is crisp, almost delicate in its clarity, and you breathe deeply, feeling the dryness catch in your throat. Around you, traders share quiet jokes and stories, their voices rising like a gentle tide. One jokes about a camel who refused to move until it was sung to, earning a round of soft laughter. Another shares a rumor of a hidden well, marked only by a certain cactus blooming in defiance of the desert's rule. Historians still argue whether such wells ever existed, or they were simply hopeful legends whispered to keep spirits high. But hey, in the steady rhythm of footsteps and the low hum of camel grunts, the stories feel as real as the sand beneath your feet. You notice a young boy riding a small, light-footed camel near the edge of the caravan, his eyes wide and bright with the thrill of the journey. His father rides close by, offering quiet instructions that weave between encouragement and caution. By midday, the heat grows fierce, the sun a white-hot disk hanging in a pale sky. The caravan halts in the shadow of a jagged outcrop, the only semblance of shelter for miles. You join a group of traders in the shade, where someone has laid out simple fare, flatbread, dried fruits, and small bundles of cheese wrapped in cloth. A trader unwraps a bundle of dried meat, offering you a piece that is both salty and tender. Camel meat, she explains, her tone practical, though her eyes twinkle with a hint of mischief. Tougher than it looks, but it keeps you walking. You chew thoughtfully, letting the flavors settle. While nearby, a storyteller begins a tale of a merchant who once bartered an entire caravan's worth of salt for a single enchanted stone. The stone, they say, held the secret to finding water in the driest of places. Historians still debate whether such legends have any truth, or if they were simply born from the longing for something magical to break the desert's endless monotony. Either way, the story wraps around you like a thread, its quiet cadence lulling you into a light doze. The caravan resumes its journey as the sun begins to dip, the air shifting from blistering heat to a more bearable warmth. You walk beside a trader who hums a low tune, her voice weaving between the dunes like a ribbon of sound. She shares a story of a salt trader from long ago who navigated by the stars, guided by a constellation known only to those who listen closely to the desert's whisper. They say, she confides, that even the camel could sense the path, stepping in time with the rhythm of the stars. You look up, tracing the path of the sun as it sinks lower, painting the sky with strokes of rose and gold. The sand takes on a gentle glow, the shadows lengthening, and the caravan's pace slows as if to match the desert's own heartbeat. You notice small signs of life, a lone shrub bravely standing against the wind, a beetle making slow progress across a dune, the distant cry of a hawk overhead. As dusk settles, the caravan stops near a shallow depression where the sand holds a faint trace of moisture. Traders pitch small shelters, their hands working in practiced unison, driving stakes into the sand, tying knots with swift precision. You help gather firewood, mostly dried camel dung and sparse twigs, and join a circle around a flickering flame. The fire crackles, sending up sparks that disappear into the darkening sky. A trader with a weathered face and eyes that glint like polished stone begins a story about a trader who vanished into the desert, only to return years later with camels laden with silver and a tale of a city made of salt. The others listen with rapt attention, their faces bathed in firelight, the night pressing close around them. Some say the city is still out there. The trader finishes softly, waiting for those who are brave enough or foolish enough to seek it. The stars bloom above you, a canopy of light so dense it feels almost solid. You lie back on your blanket, your gaze tracing the patterns you come to recognize: the hunter, the water jar, the desert queen. The quiet hum of conversation fades into the soft rustle of sand, the gentle murmur of camels settling for the night. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with a cool, clean air, feeling the pulse of the desert slow your heartbeat. Nearby, a trader tunes a simple reed flute, the notes lilting and soft, weaving through the stillness like a gentle breeze. You close your eyes, letting the music and the hush of the desert wrap around you like a cloak. The fire's glow fades into embers, the last crackles dying into silence. Sleep tugs at you, persistent and gentle, and as your breathing slows, you feel the caravan's pulse continuing beneath you, steady and sure, a thread of quiet resilience running through the desert's heart. You wake with the desert chill still clinging to your skin, the sky above lightening with the promise of dawn. The camel bells jingle softly, their chimes delicate against the vast hush of sand and sky. You stretch, feeling the stiffness in your limbs from yesterday's long trek, and take a moment to appreciate the sheer quiet of the desert at first light. The stillness feels vast, as though the world itself holds its breath, waiting for the day to unfold. A trader in a russet cloak hands you a steaming cup of spiced tea, her smile small but warm. "For the road," she murmurs, her breath curling in the cool air. You sip slowly, the heat of the tea spreading through your chest, tasting faintly of cinnamon and something you can't quite place, perhaps a hint of dried desert herbs. Around you, the caravan stays to life, traders shaking out blankets, checking camel loads, and sharing quiet murmurs about the path ahead. You set off, the camels padding softly through the sand, their shadows long and slender against the golden light. The rhythm of their steps settles into a gentle sway, a familiar, almost hypnotic cadence. You catch snippets of conversation. One trader complaining lightly about a sore back, another laughing about a camel that insists on leading the pack no matter how often it's nudged aside. Someone starts a low chant, the sound weaving through the caravan like a thread, keeping spirits steady. As the sun rises higher, the air grows warmer, the dunes shimmering under its glare. The caravan skirts a series of ancient stone markers half buried in the sand. Their glyphs faint but still legible. They mark an old trade route, one that's been followed for centuries, connecting far-flung salt mines to bustling markets. Historians still argue whether these routes were mapped by keen observation of stars, the migration of animals, or pure trial and error, but the enduring presence of the markers suggests a deep knowledge of the land. You walk beside a trader who shares a tale of a legendary salt trader, it's said, once navigated by the sound of shifting sand alone. They say he could hear the dunes breathing, she says, her voice low and lilting. That's how he always knew the safest path. You smile, the image conjuring a mental picture of a man with his ear to the ground, listening to secrets whispered by the earth itself. Midday brings the caravan to a halt near a rare cluster of scrub trees, their thin branches offering a patch of shade. The camels settle with soft grumbles, their legs folding beneath them like awkward origami. You join a group of traders sharing a simple meal of dried dates, flatbread, and goat cheese, the flavors sharp and familiar. One trader passes around a pouch of sugared almond, his laughter easy as he shares a joke about camels being better at finding water than humans. The conversation drifts to memories of past journeys, of sandstorms that rose like living wolves, of nights spent huddled around fires telling stories to keep fear at bay. Historians still debate whether these tales exaggerate the dangers of the desert or reflect genuine experiences. But in this moment, as you nibble on a piece of sweet almond, the stories feel as real as the sand beneath your feet. A sudden gust of wind stays the sand, sending a shimmering wave across the dune. You pull your cloak tighter, watching as the horizon dances under sun's heat. The caravan resumes its journey, the camels stepping carefully along narrow ridges, their feet sinking slightly into the soft sand. You fall into step beside a young boy leading a camel laden with salt. He hums a simple tune, his voice light and steady. You notice how he checks a camel's load with practiced hands, tightening straps, adjusting the balance with the ease of someone far older than his years. As the afternoon stretches on, the sun's relentless heat begins to press down, the sky a bleached expanse. You feel the weight of the pack on your shoulders, the salt slab seeming heavier with each step. The trader's conversation fades into a low murmur, replaced by the steady crunch of sand underfoot and the rhythmic jingle of camel bells. Despite the heat, there's a sense of camaraderie, of shared purpose threading through the caravan. In the distance, a shimmer on the horizon resolves into the outline of a cluster of low stone buildings, a rest stop known only to seasoned traders. You feel a surge of relief, your steps quickening despite the fatigue. The traders call out softly to one another, pointing toward the faint shapes, their voices carrying a note of hopeful anticipation. The camels pick up their pace, sensing the end of the day's journey. Reaching the outpost, you're greeted by the scent of baking bread and the low murmur of voices. Traders from other caravans nod in recognition, their faces sun-worn and familiar. A woman in a deep indigo robe offers you a cup of cool water from a clay jug, the liquid tasting of earth and stone but refreshing beyond word. You drink gratefully, feeling the tension ease from your shoulders. The traders settle into a shared space, a low-walled courtyard where camels are tethered, fires are kindled, and stories begin to weave between the groups. You sit with a cluster of traders, listening to a tale about a mysterious oasis hidden deep within the dunes, its location revealed only to those who pass a test of patience and humility. Historians still argue, someone murmurs, whether the oasis was real or just a metaphor for inner peace. You smile, the idea resonating as you stretch out on a woven mat, your eyelids growing heavy. The desert night descends quietly, the sky deepening into velvet sprinkled with stars. The fires flicker low, casting dancing shadows against the stone wall. You hear a trader strumming a simple stringed instrument, the notes rising and falling like waves against the hush. A soft breeze carries a scent of bread and herbs, mingling with the cooler night air. You breathe deeply, feeling the pulse of the caravan slow into something softer, something almost like sleep. The last sound you hear before sleep claims you are the faint rustle of camels settling for the night, the quiet murmur of voices fading into silence, and the gentle strum of music echoing softly under the stars. Dawn's first light filters softly through the sparse clouds, casting long shadows across the sand. The air feels crisp, a cool reprieve before the sun asserts its dominance over the desert once more. You wake to the low murmur of traders readying for the day, the clink of harnesses, and the gentle snorts of camels adjusting to their burden. A breeze stays a faint scent of dust and fire smoke, hinting at the lingering warmth of last night's story. You stretch, feeling the pull of tired muscles, and gather your pack as the caravan forms a loose line, the camel's dark silhouette set against the pale dawn. One trader, her indigo robe shimmering faintly with dew, shares a soft smile with you. Today's path is long, but easy, she murmurs, adjusting the leather straps of her camel's load. You nod, feeling the weight of her words, not just distance, but the quiet challenges of the journey ahead. As you fall into step with the caravan, the sound of bell jingling and sand crunching becomes a steady rhythm, a gentle hum in the vast silence. You notice the traders' faces, some contemplative, others focused, each carrying a personal rhythm shaped by years on this ancient trade route. One older man, his russet tunic faded with sun, hums a tune under his breath, tapping the side of his camel's pack in time with the melody. It's a simple act, but it adds a touch of life to the otherwise still morning. By mid-morning, the sun climbs higher, casting the dunes into sharp relief. The caravan winds along the crest of a ridge, the view revealing a broad expanse of salt flat below. Historians still debate whether these salt deposits were ancient remnants of a long-evaporated sea or the result of subterranean springs that fed shallow pan. Either way, the salt's glimmer against the golden sand is mesmerizing, a stark contrast that feels almost otherworldly. A trader nearby points out a faint line of animal tracks crossing the flats. Gazelles, he says softly, but don't be fooled. They are faster than they look. You watch the delicate trails, imagining the swift movement of creatures adapted perfectly to this harsh landscape. The desert, while silent to your ears, hums with the hidden rhythms of life. As the caravan descends into the flats, the air grows warmer, the reflected light making you squint. The camels move carefully, their broad feet dispersing weight over the unstable ground. You spot patches where the salt crust is broken, revealing pools of briny water underneath, clear but undrinkable. A trader warns you to tread lightly, his voice low. The ground gives way without warning. The caravan pauses near a low rise where the traders gather to adjust their loads and share a quick meal. You're offered a handful of dried figs and salted almond, the flavors sharp and invigorating against the flat taste of the air. Someone passes around a small skin of tart camel milk, its coolness a welcome relief. You sit with a group, listening to an elder recount stories of legendary caravans, ones that supposedly travel for months without a single word spoken. Historians still argue, he adds, whether that silence was out of respect for the desert or just good strategy against bandits. A few chuckles rise from the group, but the idea lingers. The notion of a radio silence, where words give way to gestures and glances, feels both practical and profound. You imagine a caravan moving in perfect synchronization, each trader attuned to the subtle signals of the others, a nod here, a raised hand there, all communicating volumes without a sound. The afternoon heat presses down, but the caravan's pace remains steady. A trader in a saffron scarf points out a cluster of ancient stone markers half swallowed by shifting dune. Their weathered glyphs speak of routes once well-trodden, now nearly forgotten. You trace the carvings with your eyes, wondering at the hands that etched them and the journeys they marked. As the sun dips lower, the caravan reaches the far side of the salt flats, the terrain shifting back to dunes and scrub. The camel steps become lighter, their pace quickening as if sensing the end of the day's challenge. The air cools slightly, the breeze carrying the scent of distant herbs and faint traces of smoke. You pass a tray of boiling water over a small fire, her fingers deftly preparing a simple tea of desert mint and dried citrus peel. She offers you a sip, the sharpness of the mint clearing your mind, the citrus bright on your tongue. The sun sets in a blaze of rose and gold, the horizon glowing like embers. The traders begin to set up camp, their movements practiced and efficient. Fires are lit, mats unrolled, and the camels unburdened with soft grumbles of relief. You find a quiet spot near a low dune, watching the sky deepen into twilight. The first stars appear, timid but steady, scattered across the darkening canvas. Nearby, a small group of traders begins to share stories, their voices low and melodic. One speaks of a legendary caravan lost in a sandstorm, their fate unknown. Another shares a lighter tale of a mischievous camel that learned to untie its own ropes, causing chaos at every camp. The laughter is quiet, respectful of the night, but it carries the warmth of shared experience. As the evening deepens, you settle into your mat, listening to the quiet rustle of the desert, the faint crackle of fires, and the occasional soft snort from the camel. You feel the weight of the day ease from your shoulders, replaced by a gentle weariness. The traders' voices blur into a soothing hum, blending with the breeze and the vast silence of the salt flats. You close your eyes, letting the desert cradle you into sleep, the promise of tomorrow's journey already weaving into your dream. The pre-dawn sky glows with a subtle opalescence, the stars gradually fading into a pale wash of color as the traders begin to stay. You wake to the soft clink of harnesses being checked and the gentle snorts of camels rising from their slumber. The air holds a chill, crisp and fragrant, with a scent of dew settling on sand and sparse desert grasses. A trader offers you a strip of dried dates, their sweetness a welcome spark of energy as you stretch and gather your belongings. The caravan sets off before the sun fully crests the horizon, the silhouettes of camels and traders cutting a graceful line across the pale landscape. The sand crunches softly beneath your sandals, the rhythmic jingle of camel bells blending with the low murmur of quiet conversation. A woman in a russet tunic shares a soft joke with a neighbor, her laughter rising like a bird call into the quiet morning air. You feel the camaraderie in these small exchanges, a thread that binds a group together against the vast silence of the desert. As the light strengthens, the terrain shifts subtly. The dunes rise in gentle waves, their crests etched with rippling patterns by the wind. You notice the traders scanning the ground carefully, their eyes sharp for signs of changing sand patterns, an instinct honed over generations. Historians still debate whether these shifting sands were seen as a challenge or a guide, but to these traders, they are simply part of the language of the desert, spoken in drifts and shadows. A young boy, barely tall enough to reach his camel's flank, rides confidently at the rear of the caravan. His small hands grip the reins with practiced ease, and his face glows with quiet determination. You catch his gaze, and he flashes a shy smile before turning his attention back to the path ahead. His presence is a living testament to the legacy of these salt routes, a tradition passed down through bloodlines and story. By mid-morning, the sun hangs heavy overhead, its heat tempered slightly by a thin veil of cloud. The caravan pauses briefly at a shaded outcrop of rock, the traders taking the opportunity to rest and share water. You join them, savoring the coolness of a sip from a goatskin flask and the salty tang of preserved olive. The conversation turns to news from distant towns, a merchant's unexpected windfall, a village's celebration of a rare rainstorm, the quiet resilience of communities strung along the trade routes. A trader in a teal robe produces a small, intricately carved wooden box. He opens it to reveal a handful of tiny, shimmering salt crystals, each one a perfect miniature of the landscape around you. He explains that these are a prized form of salt, valued not just for flavor but for their almost mystical appearance. They say, he murmurs, that a pinch of this salt can bring luck to a journey. You listen, intrigued, feeling the pull of ancient beliefs woven into the fabric of daily life. The caravan resumes its pace, moving through a narrow pass between rocky outcrops. The camel steps echo softly against the stone walls, the air filled with the scent of sun-warmed rock and faint traces of wild thyme. You notice small clusters of flowering plants clinging stubbornly to the crevices, their bright colors a cheerful defiance against the harsh environment. A trader nearby points out a patch of ancient petroglyphs etched into the rock, a series of animal figures and abstract patterns whose meanings are lost to time. Historians still argue, he says with a wink, whether these were warnings, blessings, or just barred artists. As the day stretches into afternoon, the caravan descends into a broad valley where the sand gives way to cracked earth and dry grass. You feel a subtle shift in the air, a scent of impending rain, though the sky remains stubbornly clear. The traders exchange glances, their pace quickening slightly as if responding to a shared, unspoken knowledge. One woman wraps a scarf tighter around her shoulders, her eyes scanning the distant horizon for signs of gathering cloud. The valley floor is dotted with ancient wells, some still functional, others long since choked with sand. You watch as a trader draws a bucket from one, the water cool and clear despite its hidden depths. She offers you a drink, and the water tastes faintly of minerals and history, a link to countless caravans that have passed this way before. By late afternoon, the sun's glare softens, casting long shadows across the valley. The traders begin to speak more freely, their voices rising above the steady rhythm of footsteps and hoofbeats. Stories are shared, tales of desert mirages, of secret springs guarded by spirits, of a lost caravan rumored to have vanished into a sandstorm only to reappear decades later. The laughter is quiet, tinged with respect for the mysteries that still linger in the desert silence. As evening approaches, the caravan crests a low ridge, revealing a panorama of distant salt pans and darkening dune. The sky blooms with shades of coral and lavender, the first stars shyly twinkling into view. The traders begin to set up camp, their movements efficient and practiced. Fires are lit, pots of lentil stew set to simmer, and camels unburdened of their load. You settle near the edge of the camp, watching the sky deepen into indigo, feeling the day's dust and heat ease from your skin. A trader with weathered face and a voice like soft sand begins to sing, a low, rhythmic chant that seems to blend with the crackle of the fire and the hush of the evening breeze. Others join in, their voices weaving a tapestry of sound that feels as old as the trade routes themselves. The song carries a quiet strength, a reminder of the endurance and spirit that bind this community together across the shifting sand. As the firelight dances on faces and the stars wheel overhead, you feel the desert's quiet embrace settling around you. The traders' voices soften into murmurs, the camels rest in gentle silhouettes against the night, and the air hums with a peace that transcends the day's journey. You close your eyes, letting the melody, the desert's pulse, and the weight of countless footsteps lull you into a deep, contented sleep. Dawn rises slowly over the desert, its light stretching languidly across the dunes like a waking cat. You open your eyes to the soft murmur of traders preparing for another day's journey. The air holds a hint of coolness, a fleeting whisper of night before the sun's heat takes hold. Camels grunt and shuffle as their burdens are rebalanced, their shadows lengthening on the sand. You sit up, feeling the familiar tug of tired muscles and the slight ache of yesterday's walk. But there's a quiet satisfaction in the routine, in the knowledge that the path ahead is as much a destination as it is a continuation. A trader offers you a piece of flatbread wrapped around dried apricots and a smear of honey, a sweet start to the day. You thank them, savoring the contrast of textures, the earthy chew of bread against the bright burst of fruit. It's a reminder that even in this seemingly desolate landscape, there's room for small luxuries and moments of connection. The caravan sets off with an easy rhythm, camels swaying gently, traders' voices low and measured. The sun climbs steadily, painting the world in gold and bronze. You notice how the light sharpens the textures of sand and rock, etching them with fine detail. It's a landscape that seems both eternal and ever-changing, a paradox that sits comfortably with those who've learned its secrets. Historians still argue whether the desert's allure lies in its stark beauty or in the challenge it presents, but either way, it's a stage upon which countless stories are played out. As you walk, the path takes a subtle curve around a rocky outcrop, revealing a surprise, a small, hidden spring bubbling into a shallow pool. The traders pause to refill water skins, their movements reverent and unhurried. You kneel beside the pool, watching as tiny fish dart among the reeds, their movements a lively contrast to the stillness of the water. The scent of wet earth mingles with the faint fragrance of desert flowers, a sensory reminder that life thrives even in the harshest places. A boy nearby points to a cluster of wild herbs growing along the water's edge. "My mother says these make the best tea," he explains with quiet pride. He gathers a small handful, tucking them carefully into his pouch. You smile, imagining the warmth of that tea brewed over an evening fire, its flavor a blend of earth and resilience. It's a simple act, yet it feels deeply rooted in tradition. As the day unfolds, the caravan's path winds through a narrow defile, the walls rising steeply on either side. The air grows still, and the usual breeze falls away, replaced by a hush that magnifies every footstep, every jingle of harness. You sense a shift in mood, a quieting of conversation as the traders focus inward, conserving their breath for the climb. The camel's steady breathing and the soft crunch of sand become the soundtrack of this moment. It's a stretch of silence that feels both meditative and charged, as if the desert itself is listening. At the crest of the defile, the world opens up again into a wide plain scattered with low, scrubby trees. Hey! The caravan pauses for a midday rest. The traders unpacking simple meals of lentils, preserved lemons, and flatbread. You sit with them, sharing a few quiet words, letting the food and companionship ease away to the morning's journey. A woman in a saffron scarf hums softly to herself as she pours tea into small, chipped cups. You catch the melody, a tune you heard once before, now carrying the warmth of familiarity. The afternoon brings a shift in weather. Clouds gather along the horizon, their edges tinged with a dusty rose. A faint breeze picks up, stirring the sand into delicate spiral. The traders glance at the sky, their movements gaining a subtle urgency. You feel the temperature drop slightly, the air sharpening with the promise of sandstorm. A trader in a deep indigo robe speaks softly. We should make camp early, before the wind picks up. The decision is made quickly and without panic. The caravan finds a sheltered hollow between dunes. Camels kneeling in practice obedience as loads are swiftly unburdened. Tents rise, secured with heavy stones and rope. You help drive stakes into the sand, your hands working with a familiarity born of repetition. The first grains of wind-driven sand sting your cheeks as you tie down the last flap of canvas. As the storm begins, you take shelter with the others, the tent walls billowing softly like sails. The sound of the wind grows to a steady roar, punctuated by the rattle of sand against fabric. Inside, the traders sit close, sharing stories and laughter that weave a protective cocoon around the group. One trader tells a tale of a legendary salt merchant who supposedly rode through a storm so fierce that his footprints turned to stone, marking the path for generations. Historians still argue, he says with a grin, whether it's just a story or a truth forgotten by time. The storm's fury lasts longer than expected, but the mood inside the tent remains light. You listen to the stories, feeling the camaraderie of shared challenge. When the wind finally dies down, the traders emerge into a landscape transformed, dunes reshaped, paths are raised, but the sky clear and bright with the last rays of the setting sun. The air smells of wet sand and ozone, a scent that feels both exhilarating and grounding. That evening, as the trader prepares a simple meal and the camels settle into the familiar rhythm of rest, you find a quiet spot on a dune's crest. The sky blazes with stars, each one sharp and bright against the velvet darkness. The hush of the desert feels deeper now, the silence punctuated only by the soft exhale of sleeping camels and the distant call of a night bird. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders, feeling the cool embrace of the night settle over you like a promise of peace. You close your eyes, letting the weight of the day, the rhythm of the journey, and the soft murmurs of the traders weave into the fabric of your thought. The desert cradles you in its ancient silence, a space where time stretches and bends, where each step taken today echoes across centuries. You feel sleep tugging at your consciousness, a gentle pull into dreams shaped by salt, sand, and the quiet resilience of those who have walked this path before. The dawn after the storm breaks with a hush, as if the desert itself is taking a long, steady breath. You awaken to the first rays of light casting a soft blush across the dunes, the sand smoothed into gentle curves and ripples by yesterday's wind. The camels rise slowly, shaking sand from their coats, their breath steaming in the cool morning air. The traders, too, move with a quiet grace, stretching and sharing soft murmurs as they're ready for the day's journey. You rise with them, feeling the lingering ache of muscles used and the subtle comfort of routine reasserting itself. A trader hands you a piece of bread warm from the coals, its crust still crisp and its interior tender. You eat slowly, savoring the mingling flavors of flour and ash, grateful for the small comfort. Around you, the caravan's rhythm resumes, the stacking of loads, the adjusting of harnesses, the low, rumbling conversation of camel protesting the start of another day. You can't help but feel a growing fondness for these animals, with their long lashes and patient, resigned expressions, as they shoulder the burdens of a trade older than memory itself. As the caravan sets off, the world seems newly scrubbed and bright. The sky stretches wide and clear, the air crisp with the scent of damp sand. The trader's steps fall into a steady cadence, each footfall a beat in the day's unfolding symphony. You notice the subtle shift in atmosphere, a quiet determination that carries a group forward. Historians still argue whether this resilience was born from necessity or choice, but as you walk, you sense a quiet pride in each step, a communal strength that transcends word. The path winds through a landscape dotted with ancient markers, weathered stones carved with symbols you can barely decipher. A trader points to one, explaining that it marks a safe well, hidden from the casual traveler but essential for those in the know. You pause to run your fingers over the worn carvings, feeling the echo of countless hands that have traced these same lines, the pulse of shared knowledge and silent communication woven into the stones themselves. A sudden movement catches your eye. A fox darting between rocks, its coat a flash of russet against the sand. It pauses for a moment, ears pricked and eyes bright, before disappearing into a crevice. One of the traders chuckles softly. They say the foxes know all the secrets of the desert, he murmurs, and they'll tell them to you if you know how to listen. You smile at the notion, wondering what the fox might have whispered if it had stayed a moment longer. By midday, the caravan reaches a wide, flat stretch of sand, its surface shimmering under the sun's growing heat. Here, the traders set up a temporary camp, shading themselves with woven mats and brewing tea over small fires. You sit with them, sipping the bitter, fragrant liquid, feeling it cut through the dryness of your throat. The air hums with a low cadence of conversation, stories shared with the ease of long companionship. A trader in a teal scarf recounts a tale of a salt trader who supposedly once crossed the Sahara on foot, armed with nothing but a pouch of salt and an unshakable belief in his luck. Historians still argue, he adds with a wink, whether it was luck or sheer stubbornness. The afternoon wears on, the heat rising like a curtain around you. The caravan continues at a measured pace, the camel's footprints creating a path of memories across the sand. You catch the glint of salt crystals embedded in the ground, remnants of ancient deposits left behind by long-vanished seas. It's a quiet reminder that the desert holds layers of history beneath its surface, stories waiting to be uncovered by those willing to look and to listen. As the sun begins its slow descent, the caravan approaches a line of low, jagged hill. The traders speak in hushed tones about the pass ahead, known for its tricky footing and sudden shifts in sand. They tighten the loads, check the harnesses, and move forward with a focused determination. You follow, feeling the air grow cooler, the shadows stretching long and blue across the path. The pass winds upward, the sand giving way to rocky ground that crunches underfoot. Camels grunt in protest, their progress slow but steady. At the highest point, the view opens out across a vast expanse of dunes and salt flats, the sun casting long, golden streaks across the landscape. The traders pause, some shading their eyes with callous hands, others murmuring prayers or simply standing in silent appreciation. You feel a sudden lightness, a sense of having climbed not just a hill but a moment in time, a vantage point where past and present intersect. It's a fragile, beautiful balance, one that holds the echo of footsteps worn into the stone and the silent weight of generation. The descent is quiet, the pace cautious. As the caravan reaches the base of the hills, the traders begin to relax, their voices rising again in low conversation and the occasional burst of laughter. They share pieces of dried fruit and nuts, simple sustenance that tastes rich after the day's effort. You sit with them, feeling the camaraderie settle around you like a comfortable cloak, a reminder that even in the vast solitude of the desert, companionship endures. That evening, the camp is made near shallow wadi, its banks lined with scraggly trees. The camels kneel grateful, the traders moving with practiced ease as they set up tents and prepare a simple meal. The air cools quickly, the heat of the day giving way to the sharp clarity of night. You find a spot near the fire, the scent of smoke and roasting grain mingling with a faint fragrance of desert herb. A trader begins to play a soft tune on a simple flute, the notes rising and falling like the wind itself. The sound blends with the crackle of the fire, creating a lullaby that seems to soothe not just the people but the very air around you. You watch the flames dance against the backdrop of the darkening sky, feeling the weight of the journey settle into your bones. The desert stretches endlessly beyond the circle of light, its vastness both humbling and strangely comforting. As the stars emerge, sharp and clear, you feel a deep sense of belonging, not just to the caravan, but to the endless rhythm of the desert itself. The pulse of footsteps, the murmur of voices, the quiet music of wind and sand, all of it weaves together into a tapestry of continuity and quiet resilience. You close your eyes, letting the sounds and scents of the evening wash over you. The journey continues, each day a thread in a story older than you can comprehend. And as sleep pulls at the edges of your mind, you feel the desert cradle you once more, its silence not emptiness but a vast embrace filled with stories waiting to be told. As dawn breaks across the horizon, the light spills over the sand like liquid gold, catching the rough edges of the dunes and the glint of frost that lingers on the tips of salt crust. You awaken with a stretch, feeling the familiar pull of stiff muscles and the quiet thrill of knowing another day's journey awaits. Around you, the traders stir, their movements slow and deliberate, as if drawing out the last few moments of peace before the demands of the day resume. A camel snorts softly, nudging a bundle of supplies with its nose, and a low murmur of voices rises like a gentle tide. The caravan prepares for departure with practiced ease, each person falling into a rhythm honed by repetition. You help secure the packs, the rough texture of woven rope scraping your palms, and glance toward the eastern sky where the first pale fingers of sunlight stretch upward. A trader in russet wraps calls out a greeting, his voice carrying familiar warmth that reminds you that even here, where the landscape seems unchanging, bonds are built from simple gestures. You nod back, feeling the quiet camaraderie settle into your bones. As the caravan sets off, the path winds through a salt-flat expanse, its surface gleaming under the rising sun. The light refracts in 1,000 tiny mirrors, creating the illusion of a shimmering lake that recedes as you approach. The camel's hooves crunch against the salt crust, each step a gentle percussion in the morning hush. Historians still argue whether these salt flats were once the beds of ancient seas or the remnant of forgotten floods. But as you walk, the quiet stretches out around you, as if the land itself holds its secrets close. A sudden burst of color catches your eye, a lone desert flower blooming defiantly amid the stark white of the salt. Its petals are delicate, a vivid splash of crimson against the pale expanse, and it seems to hum with quiet life. A nearby trader notices your gaze and murmurs, "They say the desert flowers bloom where hope lingers longest." You smile, feeling the truth of that simple observation settle deep in your chest. The journey continues, the sun climbing steadily higher, painting the dunes with shifting patterns of light and shadow. The air warms, the chill of morning giving way to a dry heat that seeps into your skin and bone. You pause at a shallow well, watching as the traders draw water, their movements efficient but respectful. Each sip is taken with a reverence that speaks of hard-earned wisdom, a recognition that in this landscape, water is not just a necessity but a sacred gift. You drink slowly, savoring the coolness against your parched throat, and offer a silent nod of thanks to the unseen forces that keep the well replenished. Later, as the caravan crests a low rise, the view opens to reveal a wide plain marked by faint trails and scattered cane. These markers, simple piles of stone balanced carefully by hands long gone, guide the caravan's path as surely as any map. You trace the contours of one such cane, feeling the rough edges of the stones, and imagine the travelers who placed them, silent signposts in a landscape where even the smallest gesture carries weight. As the afternoon sun beats down, the pace slows, the traders conserving energy against the heat. You find a patch of shade beneath a rocky outcrop, joining a group who share a modest meal of dates, bread, and dried meat. Conversation flows easily, punctuated by laughter and the occasional playful jibe. A trader with a sun-creased face tells a tale of a caravan lost in a sandstorm, saved only by the sudden appearance of a flock of birds that guided them to shelter. Historians still argue whether it was chance or divine intervention, he says with a shrug, but I'll take luck where I can find it. Evening approaches, and the caravan descends into a shallow basin ringed by dunes, where the sand glows with the last light of day. The camels kneel gratefully, and the traders begin setting up camp. You help gather firewood, the brittle branches snapping under your fingers, and share in the quiet satisfaction of creating something steady and warm against the encroaching chill. The fire crackles to life, its glow a beacon in the growing darkness. A simple meal is prepared, grain simmered with herbs, a stew fragrant with spices. The scent mingles with the cool night air, drawing the group closer. You eat in companionable silence, the food filling your belly and soothing the day's weariness. A trader pulls out a worn drum, tapping a soft rhythm that weaves between the voices and the crackle of flame. The beat is steady, a heartbeat that ties the group together, a pulse that echoes in the hush of the desert night. As you lean back, gazing up at the sky, the stars emerge one by one, sharp and brilliant against the velvet dark. The night stretches wide and endless, a canvas of light and shadow, of memory and possibility. You feel the weight of the day slip from your shoulders, replaced by a quiet reverence for the journey you shared and the countless others that came before. A heron passes overhead, its wings outstretched, gliding silently against the starlight. You watch its graceful flight until it disappears into the night, a reminder that even in the vastness of the desert, life moves with purpose and grace. You close your eyes, listening to the gentle rhythm of the drums, the soft rustle of sand underfoot, and the steady breathing of the camels nearby. As sleep approaches, you feel the pulse of the caravan wrap around you like a lullaby, the silent radio of the desert carrying you into dreams. The desert hushes as the last embers of the fire fade into the cool night air. You lie back, feeling the warmth of the sand beneath you, the faint scent of smoke and sage lingering like a memory. The stars above seem closer now, as if they've drifted down to keep you company in the quiet dark. Each one twinkles softly, a tiny promise that even in the vast silence, there's connection, there's light. The breeze stays, carrying with it the delicate whisper of shifting dunes, the muted murmur of camel breath, The soft rustle of fabric as a trader adjusts a blanket nearby. You let these sounds wash over you, each one a note in the lullaby of the desert. Your breathing slows, matching the steady cadence of the night, and your thoughts drift like grains of sand carried on the wind. The Camel-Caravan, with its radio silence of footfalls and the unspoken language of shared glances, becomes a comforting presence, a gentle heartbeat that pulses through the dunes and stars. You feel yourself relaxing into the embrace of sleep, the boundary between wakefulness and dreams softening like the edge of a dune blurred by the wind. So, close your eyes. Let the weight of the world slip from your shoulders. Let the stories of the desert, the salt traders and the silent caravans, the laughter and the silence, the resilience and the quiet grace, gather around you like a blanket woven from light and sand. Feel the rhythm of the camel's footsteps echoing in your breath, the vastness of the stars mirroring the quiet space within. Sleep now. Let the desert cradle you gently in its ancient embrace.